The projector made that soft humming noise Elena had grown used to after years of working the booth, and the golden light from the screen flickered over the rows of red velvet seats like a heartbeat. The little theater smelled of old popcorn and lemon-scented floor cleaner, a smell she didn't mind. It kept her grounded, human, small,
Tame.
no one ever paid attention to the girl who ripped tickets and worked the evening shift alone. No one ever looked twice at her quiet, neat little life. That's exactly how Elena liked it. Because if they ever looked closer, really looked, someone might notice the way her pupils dilated when the wind shifted, or how she always took her sick days during full moons. Or how sometimes, when the lights went out and she was alone, the air around her felt heavy, like something ancient was breathing just beneath her skin. It was safer to go unnoticed. Safer for everyone. And then Louis Black walked into the theater. Elena didn't see her at first. Just heard the sharp jingle of the door, the uneven click of boots on the old tile floor. But the scent hit her instantly. Firewood, sage, rain on warm skin. Her body tensed before her brain could process it. She peeked down from the projection booth and saw her. Black leather jacket, a cropped hair that curled at the edges, eyes like storm clouds over a pine forest.
She didn't sit.
She stood in the back of the theater, looking around like she was trying to decide if she belonged there or not. And then she looked up, right at Elena. Their eyes met through the glass, and Elena's breath caught. She pulled back, heart pounding, not from fear but from something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Recognition. The next night, Louis came back. She bought a ticket to a movie no one else wanted to see. Sat in the last row.
Didn't speak.
Didn't snack. Just watched. And looked up at the booth again. The third night, she walked straight up to the counter instead. "You're Elena, right?" The voice was low, curious, wrapped in the kind of accent that had seen other countries and not just the edges of backwoods Tennessee. Elena nodded, too stunned to lie. "I'm Louis. I just moved into the old farmhouse off Driftwood Trail. You're the only person who's looked like they've actually seen it." Elena blinked. The house. The woods behind it. That's when Elena knew she was in trouble. Because no one ever talked about those woods. Not locals. Not tourists. Not the old women with rosaries on their rear-view mirrors who whispered about disappearances in the 80s. Louis smiled, slow and easy, and Elena saw something dangerous behind it. Curiosity. Intrigue. The kind of hunger that had nothing to do with food. "They say it's haunted," Louis said, leaning on the counter. "Do you believe in haunted things, Elena?" "I believe in things that hide," she answered before she could stop herself. Louis's eyes gleamed. Maybe we're the same then. That night, Elena walked home under a sky too bright with stars. Her skin itched. Her muscles ached. The moon wasn't full yet, but it was getting close. She felt the creature stirring, pacing, sensing something was changing. And it was. Because she couldn't stop thinking about Louis. Couldn't stop hearing her voice, feeling her gaze. Couldn't stop wondering what it would be like to let herself unravel in front of someone like that. But she knew better. Getting close to anyone never ended well. And getting close to Louis felt like opening a door she couldn't close. Still, she went to work the next day. And the day after. And Louis kept showing up. Sometimes with a sketchbook. Sometimes with a thermos of tea she claimed was magic. Sometimes with nothing but questions. "What do you dream about, Elena? Do you believe people are born wild or made that way? What do you look like when no one's watching?" Elena never answered. Not with words. But something in her silence kept Louis coming back. One night, just 3 days before the full moon, Louis waited until the theater was closed. She knocked softly on the glass door and held up 2 cups. "For you," she said, when Elena opened it. "Chamomile. Good for nerves. Bad for secrets." Elena hesitated, then let her in. They sat in the back row, alone, sipping tea and watching the credits of a movie Elena had seen 100 times. At one point, Louis whispered, "Do you ever feel like you're pretending so hard to be normal that you forget who you are?" Elena didn't answer. Couldn't. Because her hands were shaking. Because the animal inside her was pacing. because the scent of Louis so close made her ache. She looked over, and Louis was already looking at her, like she saw it, all of it, and didn't want to run. That night, when Elena walked home, her hands were still shaking. But not from fear. From longing. Something was changing. The moon was coming. And Louis was already too close. Elena knew the full moon was only 2 nights away because her bones started to ache in that familiar, slow-burning way, like her body was being carved open from the inside. Her senses sharpened. Sounds became clearer. Smells overwhelmed her. The flickering of fluorescent lights in the theater that normally annoyed her now felt like needles under her skin. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and worst of all, she couldn't stop thinking about Louis. Every time Louis came into the theater now, Elena's control slipped just a little more. The way Louis leaned too close when she spoke. The way she brushed Elena's arm like it was casual when they passed behind the concession stand. The way her voice dropped into something low and private when she asked about the woods again, always circling the topic like a predator testing the perimeter of a cage. Elena had spent years mastering the art of being unreadable, quiet,
Composed.
but with Louis, every part of her felt exposed. Worse, seen. And part of her wanted to be seen, even as the other part screamed that it would end in blood. "I saw something," Louis said one night, dropping onto the stool behind the counter after the last movie ended. "In the forest. Couple nights ago. Just a flicker. But it wasn't an animal." Elena froze. "What do you mean?" "It had eyes. Human-shaped. But wrong." "You were in the woods alone? Why do you think I came here?" Elena swallowed, heartbeat thudding. "That's not a good idea." "Why not?" "Because the woods don't like visitors." Louis leaned closer. "Or maybe they're just waiting for the right one." Elena stood so fast she knocked over her cup. "You shouldn't go out there again." Louis didn't flinch, just tilted her head. "Are you warning me, or protecting me?" Elena didn't answer, because she didn't know anymore. She didn't go home that night. She couldn't risk it, not with the moon so close. Instead, she drove out to the old service road that led into the unmarked forest trail, deep enough into the trees that the sounds of the town vanished and the stars disappeared behind the canopy. She left her car behind and stripped in the dark, folding her clothes in a neat pile on a moss-covered rock. Then she let the change come. It wasn't like the movies. There was no violent cracking of bones, no cinematic screaming, just pressure, like something ancient and primal rising through her blood, reshaping her. Her skin shimmered, split, reformed. Fur burst from her shoulders. Her jaw lengthened. Her spine curved. She crouched, then leapt forward on 4 limbs, and the forest welcomed her. The creature inside her, her true form, was massive, lean, all muscle and instinct. But it wasn't mindless. They needed answers. Not guesses. Not folklore. So Elena took Louis to the one place she'd sworn never to go again, the archives in the back room of the town's historical society. It was dusty, half-forgotten, and run by a woman named Miriam who had known Elena's grandmother. Miriam didn't ask what they were looking for, but her gaze lingered too long on Louis's face, as if seeing something familiar there too. They spent hours digging through newspaper clippings, local legends, death records, maps. The deeper they went, the stranger it got. Names that repeated over centuries. Disappearances around each blood moon. Descriptions of beasts half-wolf, half-woman, with eyes like mirrors and a voice like thunder. And one journal. Old, crumbling, handwritten, signed by someone named Rose Cross. Elena's great-grandmother. The pages were filled with ink drawings and fevered entries about visions in the woods, rituals with bone circles, and warnings about the Hollow One. "He wears the shape of a man," Rose had written, "but he has no soul. He howls in mirrors. He feeds on grief. He cannot die, only pass into the next shadow." One passage chilled Elena to her core. "The beast in me answers to the forest, but the Hollow One answers to nothing. He is the wound that never heals." Louis read over her shoulder in silence. "It's him," she whispered. "What we saw. What I painted. But how do we stop something like that? Elena asked. You don't. Miriam's voice came from behind them, soft but firm. They both turned. The old woman's eyes were rimmed with red. You survive him. That night, Elena sat in the theater long after closing, staring at the empty screen. Louis had gone home to rest. The streets were quiet, the sky too bright. Her skin itched. The moon was waxing, and every part of her ached for transformation. But it wasn't time. Not yet. Still, something felt off. The silence didn't sit right. She stepped outside to lock up, and found the front door already ajar. Her blood turned cold. She didn't move. Listened. The air was wrong. Flat. Like it had been scraped clean. She stepped into the lobby, heart pounding, muscles tight. And there he was. Not quite a man. Not quite a shadow. Just absence in the shape of a person. The hollow one stood behind the concession stand, head tilted. His face was Louis's face, but off, empty, like someone had carved it from wax and left it too close to a flame. You don't belong here, Elena said, her voice low and raw. He smiled. Too many teeth. Neither do you. She shifted before he could blink. Bones cracked. Fur erupted. She hit the ground on 4 legs and lunged. But when she struck, there was nothing to hit. He vanished like fog. Just gone. She skidded to a stop, breathing hard, rage burning through her chest. Then she heard it faint, from outside.
A howl.
Her name. Louis. Elena shifted back mid-run, grabbed her clothes half-dressed, sprinted barefoot through the street, her skin still rippling with remnants of the change. She didn't care. She ran like her body belonged to something faster, something feral. When she reached Louis's house, the front door was open. Broken. The lights were off. And the scent of blood, old blood, buried blood, was thick in the air. Elena stepped into the dark, whispering, Louis? Silence. Then, from the back room, a flicker of candlelight. A shape on the floor. Elena rushed forward and found Louis sitting cross-legged, shaking but alive, her hand clutching the base of an extinguished candle. Her eyes were wide. Her voice cracked when she spoke. He came here. He said your name. He said he's been waiting for you. Elena dropped to her knees, pulling her close. You're safe now. I swear. He looked like you, Louis whispered. But wrong. Like he wore your face the way you wear fur. Elena held her tighter, her jaw clenched. He's not getting near you again. But she knew the truth. The hollow one didn't want Louis. Not directly. He wanted Elena. He wanted what lived inside her. Because the beast in her was not born by accident. It was inheritance. It was invitation. And the hollow one had been waiting a very long time. Elena didn't sleep. She sat beside Louis's bed until the first crack of sunlight bled through the curtains, her eyes fixed on the shadows in the corners of the room, as if expecting them to reach for her again. Louis was alive. That was all that mattered.
For now.
But Elena knew the hollow one hadn't finished. That thing didn't want to scare her. It wanted to summon her. And if what her great-grandmother's journal had hinted was true, then it wasn't just about blood or fear or the moon. It was about legacy. And something was awakening that had been dormant for too long. She had to go deeper. Deeper into the woods. Deeper into the truth. And there was only one person left who might know how far this bloodline really went. Her name was Elspeth. No last name. No address. But every child in town had heard stories about the Bone Woman who lived beyond the northern ridge, past the river that never froze. Some said she was a witch. Others said she was cursed. The elders said she was a warning. Elena had never dared go that far before. Not even in her other form. Not until now. She left Louis a note and was gone before noon, taking only a pack, a flask of water, and the blade she hadn't touched since the last time she lost control. The hike took hours. Longer than she remembered. The forest grew denser, stranger, like the trees themselves bent subtly to block the path. But Elena's senses were sharper than ever. She could smell things no human could: metal under moss, old ash from long-dead fires, the rot of something buried deep. When she found the cabin, it looked abandoned, half swallowed by ivy, its windows so coated with grime they reflected nothing. A crow watched her from the chimney. It didn't caw. It just stared. Elena knocked. Nothing. She knocked again. "Elspeth," she said, her voice firm. "I know you're still alive." A long silence. Then the door opened just enough for a pair of pale eyes to meet hers. Not old. Not young. Timeless. "You smell like the cross line," the woman said. "And something worse." "I need answers," Elena said. "I'm not giving them. I buried mine. The hollow one is awake." That changed everything. The door opened wider. The scent that hit Elena was a mix of herbs, blood, and something electric. Elspeth stepped back to let her in, her frame slight, bones sharp under skin that looked kissed by frost. If he's awake, it means the blood has thinned too much. The forest doesn't recognize its own anymore. That's why he's bold. Elena sat slowly. What is he? A memory with a mouth. Elspeth poured something dark into a wooden bowl. He was born when the first bloodline broke its vow. Your ancestors were guardians, not predators. They were meant to keep the wildness in balance. But someone used the gift for power. And the hollow one was born from the wound that left behind. He feeds on imbalance. And now he's after me. He doesn't want to kill you, girl. Elspeth stirred the bowl. He wants you to become like him. To forget the woman. To become only the beast. Then he won't be alone. Elena's stomach twisted. How do I stop him? You don't. There must be something. There's a place, Elspeth said finally. Older than the hollow one, where the balance can be called back. But it comes with a price. What kind of price? You must bring the one who loves you. Elena froze. I'm not putting Lewis in danger. She's already marked, Elspeth said. She dreamed him, didn't she? She sees things others don't. That means the forest recognizes her. It's chosen her, too. You think it's a coincidence she came here? Elena shook her head, heart pounding. I won't lose her. Then you better not run from her. Elspeth handed her a small black stone, smooth as glass, warm to the touch. When the moon is full, place this in her hand. If she stays, the forest will let her in. If she drops it, then it's already too late. Elspeth looked out the window. You have 3 nights left. Elena returned to town just after dusk, her clothes damp with sweat, her mind spinning. She expected Lewis to be angry, scared, maybe even gone. Instead, she found her in the kitchen, barefoot, sleeves rolled up, making soup. You were gone all day, Lewis said, without turning around. I almost called the sheriff. Then I remembered I'd probably just have to explain why my girlfriend is part wolf. Elena stopped in the doorway. Girlfriend. Lewis finally turned. What else do you call someone you keep dreaming about in the shape of a storm? Elena didn't answer. She walked straight to her, kissed her like it was the last time. Like there was no moon, no monster, no hollow one. Only lips.
Breath. Skin.
After, they lay tangled on the old couch, silence thick but not uncomfortable. Lewis traced a line over Elena's chest, just above where her heart beat. You saw her, didn't you? The woman in the woods. Elspeth. What did she say? That the hollow one wants me to lose myself, to become like him, and that the forest has chosen you. Chosen me for what? To stand with me, or to be taken. Elena placed the black stone into Lewis's hand. 3 nights from now, the full moon. If you still want me, then hold it. If not, let it go. Lewis looked down at the stone, then up at Elena. I already chose you the night I howled. Elena didn't sleep, not because of fear, but because for the first time, she believed she didn't have to face this alone. Lewis didn't tell Elena about the dream she had that night. She couldn't. Not yet. Not when it felt less like a dream and more like a memory from a life she'd never lived. In it, she was barefoot in the forest. The ground pulsed beneath her feet like it had a heartbeat. Trees towered above her, but their branches didn't block the sky. Instead, they leaned back, opening the canopy as if the stars themselves were watching. And in the clearing, at the center of it all, stood a tree unlike any she'd ever seen. Its bark was dark as night and cracked like stone. Its leaves shimmered gold, whispering a song in a language she didn't understand. She touched its trunk and felt something move, not just around her, but in her, under her skin. When she woke up, her fingers were stained with sap. Elena was already up, packing quietly, her eyes dark with determination. She didn't ask about the dream.
Didn't need to.
She looked at Louis like she knew. Like she dreamed it too. They left just after sunrise. The location Elspeth had marked on the map was deep into the northern woods, past the abandoned mines and old animal trails no one used anymore. Elena walked ahead, her senses sharp, shoulders tense. Louis followed, one hand always grazing the strap of her backpack where she kept the stone. The trees changed as they moved deeper.
Taller. Thicker.
Less alive, somehow, and yet more aware. Louis felt it first, the pressure in her chest, like something was trying to rise through her ribs. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. She'd never been here before. But her body said otherwise. Elena slowed when they reached a split in the trail. One path led to a rocky incline. The other dipped into a narrow hollow between twisted oaks. "It's down," she said. "Everything ancient lives low." Louis nodded, heart racing. The farther they went, the quieter it became. No birds, no insects, just the crunch of their boots and the distant hum of wind moving through branches that never bent. At the base of the hollow, they found it, the gate. It wasn't made of metal or stone, but of roots, intertwined, thick, forming an arch that pulsed faintly with a sickly green glow. At the center, embedded like a heart, was another black stone, larger.
Alive.
Elena stepped forward. "This is it." Louis reached out, but the second her fingers brushed the edge of the arch, she gasped. A jolt shot through her arm. Images. Fire.
Blood.
Wolves running in spirals. A woman screaming her name, not Elena's. Hers. But not her voice. She staggered back, eyes wide. What was that? Elena caught her. "The forest is testing you." "Why me?" "Because you saw me before I saw myself. Because you didn't run. And because the forest always knows." Louis looked at her, breathless. "What if I fail?" "Then I'll fail with you." Elena turned to the arch and pulled the small black stone from Louis's pack. She held it up to the gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the root wall shuddered, and the stone in the center split with a crack that echoed like thunder. The arch peeled open. A passage of earth and light and silence. And then a voice, low, ancient, female, whispered through the trees. "She may enter, but not untouched." Louis felt it before she understood it.
The shift.
Her skin burned. Her breath hitched. Something inside her, dormant her entire life, woke up. Not beast. Not magic. But bond. Connection. Elena grabbed her hand, grounding her. "You're okay." "Am I changing?"
No.
"You're becoming." They stepped through the gate together. The tunnel of roots closed behind them. What lay on the other side was not the same forest. It was older, hungrier. Time moved differently here. Light came from nowhere. The air tasted like rain and copper. Elena moved without hesitation. Louis followed, now feeling every tree, every step, like her veins had sunk into the dirt. "This place," she whispered. "It's like it's part of me." Elena nodded. "That's how I knew you'd survive it." They reached a glade at the center of the sacred grove. A circle of stones. A pool so still it reflected nothing. At the center, a raised platform made of roots and bone. Elena looked at Louis. "This is where it happens." "What do I do?" Elena reached into her pack and pulled out a small vial filled with her own blood. "We bind ourselves. To each other. To the forest. To the line that came before us. And if I don't, then you'll be sent back. And I'll face the hollow one alone." Louis stepped forward. "Then let me bleed." Elena cut her palm. Louis did the same. They pressed their hands together, and the blood mingled. The pool rippled. The stones began to hum. The forest shivered. A howl broke the silence. Distant. Familiar. The Hollow One had followed them. But the gate was closed. Elena turned to Louis, her voice steady. You have to say it. You have to claim me. Louis looked at her, breath trembling. I claim you, Elena Cross. In the name of the forest, the bloodline, and the woman you are beneath the moon. The ground trembled. The roots responded. Light burst from the pool, surrounding them. The forest accepted. The bond was sealed. And in that moment, Elena didn't feel cursed. She felt whole. The forest let them go, but it didn't let them forget. After the ritual, everything changed. The trees no longer looked like trees. They felt like watchers. The soil no longer felt like ground. It pulsed. Louis couldn't walk through the woods without feeling the vibration of old voices beneath her feet, whispering in a language she couldn't understand, but somehow recognized. Elena, stronger than ever after the bond, moved differently, more fluid. Her steps no longer cautious but confident, like something inside her had settled. But power was in peace. Not with the Hollow One still hunting. They left the sacred grove through a narrow path that hadn't been there before. The sun was already sinking, and the shadows behind them stretched unnaturally long. Elena kept checking behind them, her muscles tense. He's not close, she whispered, but he knows we're different now. He'll come faster. They made it back to Louis's house just as the last light faded. The air was thick, still, unnatural. Louis lit every candle she had. She couldn't shake the sensation that they'd brought something back with them, that the forest had bled into the world beyond its boundaries. That night, Elena stood in front of the mirror and pressed her palm to her chest. It's changing, she murmured. Louis sat on the bed, still holding the black stone. You mean the curse? No, Elena whispered. The origin. She turned. I felt it in the grove. The Hollow One, he wasn't created. He was released. Someone broke the pact. Someone with our blood. Your blood. Elena shook her head. Ours now. The next morning, Louis suggested they visit Elspeth again, but the cabin was empty. No sign of life. Only claw marks on the doorway, deep, deliberate, and still wet. He got to her, Elena said. Or she ran. But she didn't believe her own words. They returned to the archives. The same box of journals, maps, letters. This time, Louis found something Elena hadn't noticed before, an envelope, sealed, tucked beneath the false bottom of the crate marked Rose Cross. Inside was a torn page. A drawing of the black tree Louis had seen in her dream. At the base of the tree, 2 women. One kneeling. One standing with fire in her hands. Below the image, a line in faded ink. To break the cycle, one must return to the root and burn it clean. What does that mean? Louis asked. Elena stared at the image. It means the curse started with love. And it can only end with love. But not passively. We have to choose it over fear. Over power. Over everything else. Then we do. Elena turned to her. It won't be that easy. Was any of this easy? That night, Louis couldn't sleep. Again, the dream came. But this time, it wasn't the black tree. It was the Hollow One. Not the twisted, faceless figure from the woods, but a man. Young.
Sad.
Standing in a field of wildflowers, holding someone's hand. He turned to her and whispered her name, not Louis.
Leora.
She woke gasping. Heart pounding. Hands shaking. Elena sat beside her in seconds. What did you see? Louis stared at her. I think I had another name. Before. Another life. I saw him. He wasn't a monster. He was in love. With who? With someone who looked like you. Elena's breath caught. My ancestor? Maybe. Or maybe me. A version of me. Before all of this. Elena took her hand. That's why the forest chose you. Because you've been through this before. And maybe I failed. Elena's grip tightened. Not this time. The next day, they packed again. This time, not to hide, to confront, to find a root, the true one, and burn it. If this curse was born out of betrayal, Elena said, then we have to be the ones to choose each other, no matter what the forest or the hollow one throws at us. Even if he tries to twist it, especially then. They returned to the grove.
It had changed.
No longer green and gold, but gray and black, like it had aged centuries and days. At the center, the black tree waited. Louis stepped forward, the vial of their joined blood in one hand. Elena followed, knife in the other. But before they reached it, the hollow one stepped from behind the trunk. Not monstrous, not wild, just hollow. His voice was almost human. You always come back. And you always leave me behind. I was never yours, Louis said. No, he whispered, but you were her mistake. And now she's made it again. Elena stood between them. We're not afraid of you. Then why is your pulse so loud? Because I know what you want, and I won't give it.
You already did.
The moment you bound her, you fed me. You let the root grow again. I'm not a curse. I'm your shadow. I am what blooms when you love the wrong thing. No, Louis said. You are what survives when love is abandoned. Elena lit the flame. The forest screamed. The tree cracked. The hollow one lunged. And the forest chose. The hollow one moved like he remembered being human, but just barely. His hands were too fluid, his eyes too bright, like flame caught in glass. His voice echoed, not around them, but through them, threading into the marrow of their bones. You think this is the first time? He said softly, stepping from the shadow of the black tree. You think you're special? That love will save you? She thought that too. Louis stood still, her blood roaring in her ears. Who are you talking about? The first. The one who chose the forest over me. The one who stood here with her flame and her vow and forgot the promise we made. His eyes flicked to Elena. She wore your face. Elena bared her teeth. Then she made the right choice. Did she? His voice broke, cracked like old wood. She left me here. She said she'd burn the root, and instead, she buried it deeper. Then we'll do what she couldn't, Louis said. Together. No, he moved forward, and for the first time, Elena felt something behind him. Something massive. The forest shifted. The tree groaned. And then she saw it. Tendrils of black mist reaching from the roots, rising like smoke, like arms, like chains. They wrapped around her legs before she could move. Around Louis's ankles.
Tightening.
You can't burn what you're bound to, the hollow one whispered. And now you're both mine. Elena roared. Her body shifted mid-step, her transformation faster than ever. Fur surged over her limbs, her jaw lengthened, claws bursting from her fingers. She didn't wait. She lunged. But the hollow one didn't fight her. He vanished again, like before, like fog dispersing in heat, and the tendrils yanked her backward. Louis tried to run to her but fell hard, breath knocked from her chest, the ground splitting beneath her like a mouth. The forest wasn't a place anymore. It was alive. And angry. Louis's vision blurred, and suddenly, she wasn't there. She was somewhere else. Somewhere older. The clearing was the same, but the tree was young. Still blooming. Its leaves green. And beside it, a woman with Elena's face stood in a long cloak, cradling a bowl of blood in her hands. Opposite her, a man who shimmered with shadow, but hadn't yet become the hollow one. Please, he whispered. You said we'd face it together. We are, the woman said. But not like this. The forest demands balance. And what you want would twist it. I only want you. And you had me. But you want power. You want to break the cycles. That's not love. That's hunger. Then let me in. He stepped closer. Let me bind to you. I can't, she whispered. The forest won't allow it. Then I'll become something it can't stop. And then, everything burned. Louis screamed. Fire rushed through the memory, tearing it apart. She fell back into her body, gasping, coughing on smoke that didn't exist. Elena was still fighting the tendrils, snarling, her wolf form snapping at the mist. But it wasn't enough. Lewis. Elena howled. You have to burn it. I don't have fire. Yes, you do. Elena's voice broke. You are the fire. You're the one who stayed. You're the one who chose this. Lewis's eyes filled with tears. I'm not a witch. I'm not a wolf. You're mine, Elena whispered. And that's enough. Lewis reached into her pocket. The black stone pulsed, warm. She gripped it, focused on Elena, on her voice, her scent, her eyes, and whispered, Then I choose you. Again. Always. The stone burst in her hand. Light exploded. The tendrils shrieked. The hollow one howled, not in rage, but in agony. Lewis stood, light radiating from her skin, hair lifting around her face like wind had found her. The tree cracked from the base up. Elena stared in awe, frozen in the beam of light coming from Lewis's chest, from her blood, from her choice. I remember now, Lewis said. I was the one who turned away before. I let fear win. But not this time. She stepped toward the tree. Her hand lit with flame, not burning, but golden.
Pure.
She pressed it to the bark. The tree screamed. The forest wailed. The hollow one let out a final, splintering cry as his form dissolved into nothing. The tendrils vanished. The roots pulled back. The clearing fell still. And then silence. Elena shifted back slowly, her body trembling. Lewis collapsed to her knees. Elena crawled to her, pulled her into her arms. You did it, she whispered. We did it, Lewis corrected, leaning her head against Elena's. Is it over? I don't know, Elena said. But he's gone. I felt it. The tree was still standing, but it was no longer black. Its bark had turned pale gray. New leaves sprouted, soft green. A breeze passed through them, and for the first time in generations, the forest exhaled. What happens now? Lewis asked. Elena kissed her forehead. We decide. And for the first time that felt true. The hollow one was gone, but peace didn't follow. Not really. Elena and Lewis walked out of the forest changed, their steps quieter, slower, like the very earth beneath them was different now.
It was.
The trees no longer whispered threats, but they still watched. The roots no longer reached to grab, but they pulsed like veins under the soil. And the air held a stillness that felt like breath being held, not relief, but hesitation. Like the land wasn't sure if it could trust them again. Neither woman spoke much on the walk back to town. Their fingers brushed often, then intertwined, as if touch was the only thing that kept them grounded in the present. Neither had slept.
Neither wanted to.
By the time they stepped into the main road, the morning sun had started to rise, but it didn't warm them. The world felt too quiet, too normal, and they didn't belong in normal anymore. The first sign something was wrong came at the corner diner. Windows broken. Front door cracked. The open sign still flickering even though no one was inside. The second sign was the silence. No traffic, no voices, no radio playing from old speakers on porches. Just absence. Elena sniffed the air and stopped. Blood, she murmured. But not fresh. Lewis stepped closer. What do you mean? It's old.
Dead.
Like the forest brought it back with us. They reached Lewis's house to find the front door, wide open. Everything inside untouched. No signs of struggle or theft, but the black stone they'd used in the ritual sat on the table.
Whole.
Intact.
Wrong.
It broke in my hand, Lewis said, voice hollow. We saw a crack. Elena nodded. The forest is done with him, but it's not done with us. Over the next hours, the town began to reappear, slowly. People emerged like they'd been asleep for days. Confused.
Dazed.
No memory of what happened. Mrs. Havers from the bakery walked out barefoot, flour in her hair, muttering about wolves howling at noon. The sheriff's deputy knocked on Lewis's door, asking if there had been an eclipse, because all the clocks in town had stopped at the same time. But not everyone was clueless. One man, Reed Harlan, stood outside the old gas station, staring at Elena like he'd seen a ghost. Your grandmother was one of them, he said. My dad used to say she was a keeper of something. that she answered to roots, not laws. Elena stepped forward slowly. You remember her? Not her. What she did. He looked at Louis. What you both did. It's not gone. It never really goes, does it? Elena didn't answer. Neither did Louis. They left. But Reed's gaze followed them, and something in his eyes said he hadn't forgotten what real fear looked like. That night, Louis couldn't sleep again. She sat on the back porch, listening to the forest breathe, her fingers tracing the scar in her palm from the ritual. It tingled now, like something new was waking up beneath it. Elena joined her silently, barefoot, hair damp from a late shower. She sat beside Louis and didn't speak for a long time. We're not done, Louis finally said. Are we? We broke the cycle. But that doesn't mean others won't try to start it again. Like Reed. Elena nodded. He's watching. Waiting. People like him think fear gives them power. If he finds out what we really are, he won't, Louis said. We won't let him. Elena looked at her. You say that like where are we now? Louis smiled, slow and tired. Aren't we? Elena leaned in, kissed her softly, and the forest sighed. But the moment passed too quickly, because from the tree line, something moved. Not the hollow one. Not a shadow or beast. A person. Watching. Standing still just beyond the reach of the porch light. Elena tensed. Louis reached for her hand. Do you see her? Elena nodded. She's not from here. How do you know? Because she's wearing my grandmother's necklace. And just like that, the forest had given them something else. Not a monster. Not a curse. A messenger. Or a warning. She was gone by the time Elena reached the edge of the woods, but the scent remained. Earth, moss, ash, and something ancient that didn't belong to the living. The kind of scent that clung to your lungs and made your heart remember things it never lived. Elena didn't speak. She just followed it. Louis came without being asked, her hand brushing Elena's when the shadows thickened. They didn't bring weapons. They brought questions. The forest led them north, deeper than Elena had dared go even as a wolf. It wasn't a path, it was a pull. Not hostile, not welcoming. Just insistent. Like it had waited long enough. After an hour, they found the shelter. Half buried, stone-walled, roofed with moss and age. Hidden beneath a massive tree whose roots broke through the ceiling like frozen fingers. It wasn't on any map. Not in any journal. Elena stepped inside first, her breath catching. The scent was stronger here. Personal. Family. And when she turned the corner, she saw her. The woman from the tree line. Sitting in a wooden chair like she belonged there. Pale skin. Long dark braids streaked with white. And around her neck, the necklace Elena had only seen once, in a photo of her grandmother before she vanished. The woman smiled. Took you long enough. Elena's mouth went dry. Who are you? You already know. That's impossible. You died before I was born. That's what they told you. She stood slowly. No creak of joints. No sign of age. Just silence. I'm Rose Cross. The one who failed. Louis stepped forward, voice soft. You're Elena's great-grandmother? Rose nodded. And you're the one she chose. She looked at Elena. You broke the root, but you didn't bury the wound. Elena's hands clenched. Why are you still alive? Because I didn't finish the ritual. I tried. But I couldn't destroy him. Couldn't destroy the part of me that still loved what he used to be. So the forest punished me. Kept me alive. Rooted. I became a part of the land I couldn't protect. Then why show yourself now? Because it's not over. He was only half the curse. Rose walked to a shelf and pulled down an old box, setting it on the table. Inside, drawings, maps, a vial of blood, still red, still alive. There was another. One who helped him twist the ritual. A guardian who turned. She wanted the power, not the balance. And when I failed, she hid. Passed down her bloodline, just like I did. Waiting. Watching. Elena shook her head. There's no one left. Are you sure? Rose's eyes darkened. Look again. She handed Elena a folded parchment. Inside, two trees drawn side by side. One marked cross, the other black. And from the roots of the black tree, another name.
Harlan.
Lewis stuck back. Read. Elena's voice was flat. He's part of this.
He's not the threat, Rose said. He's the door.
There's someone else. Someone he answers to. And she's been waiting longer than you've been alive. Elena's pulse roared in her ears. Who? Rose looked at Lewis. Then, at the necklace. You'll find her where the trees stop growing. Where even wolves won't go. The graveyard, Elena whispered. The one beyond the ridge. Rose nodded. You'll need what I kept to stop her. She opened a drawer, revealing a blade, silver, old, etched with a language neither of them knew. It only cuts what's already dead. Elena reached for it. Why help now? Because I saw you choose love over legacy. I failed because I chose the forest over the woman I loved.
You didn't.
That matters. She turned to Lewis. You remind me of her. The one I lost. If I can help you keep yours, maybe I can rest. The air outside had changed. Colder. Heavier. As they walked back toward the town, Elena held the blade tightly. Lewis held the map. And neither of them spoke until they reached the edge of the woods. Do you believe her? Lewis asked. I don't have a choice, Elena said. If someone's been feeding the curse all this time, keeping it alive through a second line, then we only killed half the beast. And now the other half is waking up. Elena nodded. And it wears a human face. That night, a note appeared under their door. No signature. Just one sentence. The root you burned wasn't mine. And the blade Rose had given them was gone. They didn't sleep. Not really. Just enough for the body to pretend, while the mind kept racing. The blade was gone. The message under their door still burned in Lewis's memory. The root you burned wasn't mine. Elena stayed by the window all night, eyes fixed on the tree-line like she could force the forest to give her answers. But this wasn't about the forest anymore. It was about the town, about people who lived among them, people who knew, people who remembered. At dawn, they returned to the archive. Elena hadn't been back since the night they discovered her family's journals. The room felt smaller now. Or maybe it was just her. Lewis scanned through old property records, while Elena traced bloodlines on the wall of ancestral sketches.
Cross.
Black. Harlan. Names interwoven with history, hidden behind whispers and half-buried gravestones. Here, Lewis said, pointing to a page half-burned from age. Rebecca Harlan. Born in 1894. No date of death. Just a line that says disappeared into the pines. That can't be a coincidence, Elena whispered. She's the one Rose warned us about. But how? That was over a century ago. If the forest kept Rose alive, punished her, maybe it protected the other woman too. Or maybe she never died because someone didn't let her. Lewis's breath caught. Read. Elena nodded. He's the door. She's the key. And we're already too close. They didn't make it to his property until after sundown. The woods behind his house were quiet. Too quiet. No wind. No bugs. No birds. Just the hum of silence that came before something violent. Elena shifted as they approached the house, not fully, but enough that her senses sharpened. The door was unlocked. The lights were off. Inside, the air smelled like dried blood and rotting paper. This isn't a home, Lewis whispered. It's a shrine. And it was. On the walls, sketches of trees, women, wolves. Names scratched into the wood like scars. In the center of the room, a circle made of bones. Human.
Fresh.
Elena stepped into it. Her body shuddered. Images slammed into her vision. A woman with wild hair, standing in the dark with a flame in one hand and a broken blade in the other. Lewis saw it too. Felt it. Smelled the burning. Heard the chants that didn't belong in this century. She stumbled back into a desk, knocking over a book. It fell open to a photograph. Rebecca Harlan. Not old. Not dead. Not even aged. Standing beside Reed. Smiling. Like time didn't touch her. He's protecting her, Lewis said. She's not a memory. She's still here. Elena's voice was cold.
No.
She never left. Behind them, the front door closed. Slowly, firmly, they turned and there she was, Rebecca Harlan, dressed in black, skin pale and tight across her bones. Eyes sharp, ancient, and disturbingly calm. "Took you long enough," she said. Elena's fingers twitched, but she didn't shift. "Not yet." "What do you want?" "I want what Rose refused. What the forest denied me. The balance was never broken, it was stolen. And now I'm taking it back." "By doing what?" Lewis asked. "Keeping the curse alive." The curse was power. The wolf.
The blood.
The bond. But love ruined everything. She stepped closer. She ran for me.
She chose peace.
Chose the path of the guardian. And for that, I lost everything. "So now you make others pay?" Elena snapped. "You let the Hollow One become what he was. He chose rage. I chose purpose. We were meant to break the old rules together. But Rose couldn't stomach it.
She ran.
Hid. Let the forest chain her. I refused." She turned to Lewis. "But you have the fire. You woke it. You can carry it forward." "No, you already have," Rebecca said. "You lit the tree. You cracked the stone. You summoned something older than the curse. You don't need Elena." "But I choose her," Lewis said, her voice a steel blade. "Every time." "Then you're a fool." Rebecca raised her hand. The air bent around her. Power that smelled like ash and grave dirt swirled, and Elena felt her muscles seize. The magic was too old, too deep. "You can't win," Rebecca hissed. "You're the last cross. Alone, you're nothing." Lewis stepped forward. "She's not alone." She pulled something from her pocket, something Elena hadn't seen her pick up in the cabin. The broken shard of the missing blade. Rebecca's eyes widened. "That's impossible." "So was surviving you," Lewis said, and drove the shard into the ground. The circle broke. The bones exploded outward. Light poured from the floor, and Rebecca screamed, not like a woman, but like something no longer human. Elena's body unlocked. She shifted fully now, fur and fawn, rage and love, all in one motion. She lunged. And this time, Rebecca didn't vanish.
She bled.
Rebecca didn't die. She vanished into the dark with the smell of her blood still clinging to the floorboards and the echo of her screams soaked into the walls like mold. Elena stayed in her wolf form for longer than she ever had, panting, trembling, heart threatening to shatter against her ribs while Lewis knelt beside her, whispering her name over and over until it became the only thing tethering her back to herself. The shift reversed slowly, painfully, like peeling off her own skin. When Elena collapsed into Lewis's arms, she was soaked in sweat, her pulse erratic, her mouth too dry to speak. Lewis just held her. No questions. No demands. Just steady hands and her heartbeat pressed to Elena's back like a vow. When Elena could finally speak, she whispered, "She's going to the graveyard." Lewis nodded. "She said that's where the trees stop growing. Because the forest can't follow her there." Elena's voice cracked. "Because whatever she's trying to do, it has to happen where the land is dead." They didn't waste time. They packed salt, iron, and what remained of the blade shard. Elena slipped the blood-stained necklace Rose had given her around her throat. It hummed faintly against her skin, like it still remembered what it had once been part of. The walk to the graveyard wasn't far, but it felt endless. The closer they got, the colder the air became. Not cold like winter, but cold like decay, like the absence of life. The moon hung low and heavy, full again, impossibly fast, like time had bent to Rebecca's will. Elena could feel the forest behind them, watching, unable to step closer. The trees refused to grow past the edge of the burial ground. Grass stopped, and everything turned to ash-colored soil. No birds. No wind. Only silence. The gate was old iron, twisted and half-broken. They didn't open it, they stepped over. And inside, the ground pulsed faintly, like something beneath it was waking. "She's already started," Elena whispered. The The tombstones were crooked and cracked, names erased by time. But at the center, a single monument stood untouched. A tree-shaped obelisk made of obsidian, black as pitch, glinting in the moonlight. And in front of it, Rebecca. She wore red now, a dress of woven silk and blood, her hair loose and wild, her face pale but radiant. Around her, bones circled the base of the monument. Wolf bones, human bones, some too warped to name. Her voice echoed before her mouth moved. "Welcome, daughters of failure." Elena stepped forward. "You're dying. You know that." "I'm transforming," Rebecca said. "You think the Hollow One was the pinnacle of the curse? He was a shadow. I am the root, and I'm blooming." "You're a weed," Lewis said coldly. "And we came to rip you out." Rebecca smiled, wide and sharp. "So much fire in you. That's why I wanted you, Lewis. You have what Rose never did, the will to burn it all." "I have what you never understood," Lewis said.
Love. Choice.
"And I choose her." She stepped beside Elena, their hands brushing. "Even if it means burning with her." "So be it," Rebecca hissed and slammed both hands into the monument. The earth cracked. Light exploded from beneath the ground, red and gold and wrong. Elena staggered as energy pulsed around her, trying to tear her apart. She forced the shift, bones cracking, claws extending, her growl shaking the air. But Rebecca didn't flinch. She lifted her arms, and something rose behind her, a form made of bones and roots, a mockery of the forest's guardian spirit. It had a wolf skull, a woman's torso, and no eyes. It screamed. Elena lunged. Lewis ran the opposite direction, circling, using the distraction to get closer to the base of the monument. She pulled the shard from her pocket and pressed it into the cracks in the stone. It hissed. Steam rose. Rebecca screamed, staggering. The creature flinched, then roared and turned to Lewis. Elena tackled it mid-turn, driving it to the ground. Her claws slashed, but it didn't bleed. It crumbled into soil, then reformed behind her. "It's tied to her," Lewis yelled. "We have to sever it from her blood." Elena howled, the sound splitting the air. She turned back human mid-fight, skin torn, bleeding. "Then we end her line."
How?
"With our bond." Elena stepped onto the cracked circle, took Lewis's hands. "This time we finish what Rose couldn't." Lewis didn't hesitate. "I trust you." They pressed their palms together. Blood met blood. The necklace at Elena's throat lit with fire. The shard in Lewis's hand glowed. Together, they stepped to the monument, now pulsing violently, and slammed their hands, blood and flame and memory, into the stone. The light turned white. Rebecca screamed, a sound so inhuman it shattered the closest gravestones. The creature behind her twisted, flailing, then burst into dust. The monument cracked, then split, then fell. And with it, Rebecca. Her body collapsed to the earth. Still. Hollow. The silence afterward wasn't relief. It was grief. For the women who died becoming monsters. For the roots soaked in blood. For the curses born of love turned sour. Elena dropped to her knees. Lewis caught her. The moon dimmed, and the forest finally began to grow again. The silence after Rebecca's fall wasn't peace. It was too sharp, too still, like the world had inhaled and didn't dare exhale yet. Elena knelt in the ruins of the monument, blood drying on her skin, dirt clinging to her arms, her throat raw from howling. Lewis stood behind her, shaking from exhaustion but unwilling to collapse.
Not yet.
They didn't speak for minutes. Just breathed. Just existed in the wreckage of something older than both of them. When Elena finally moved, it wasn't graceful. She stumbled, catching herself against Lewis's side. "Is it over?" she rasped. "No," Lewis whispered. "But she is." They buried Rebecca with their bare hands. Not out of mercy. Out of necessity. The ground at the center of the graveyard was still scorched, still warm, and the roots beneath it twitched like a dying thing. Elena drove the last stone into the soil herself and whispered words in the old tongue Rose had taught her, sealing the ritual with something more powerful than blood: choice. When they left the graveyard, dawn was beginning to stir on the horizon. The forest welcomed them again, not with flowers or song, but with breath. Real breath. The wind stirred. Trees bent slightly. Life returned, but with it came something new. A hum beneath their feet, a weight in their chests. Louis noticed it first. "Do you feel that?" Elena nodded, eyes distant. "It's us. We've become tethered. To the forest, to the balance." Back in town, things had shifted. Subtly, strangely. Windows once shattered were whole again. Roads that had cracked beneath twisted roots now gleamed like freshly paved paths. People woke lighter, smiling, as if a fog had lifted none of them knew they were in. And yet, none remembered what had truly happened. No one spoke of wolves, or screams, or nights that didn't end. But they looked at Elena and Louis differently. Not with fear, with reverence. As if some part of them, buried deep and primal, recognized the women who walked among them as something ancient, something sacred. Louis tried to pretend she didn't feel it, that she could go back to her sketches, her quiet evenings, the smell of ink and old pages. But the forest called, even in dreams, especially in dreams. Elena stayed close, never far from reach, but she too was changing. Her eyes glowed faintly at dusk. Her voice held weight it hadn't before. One night, a week after the ritual, they stood at the edge of the trees in silence. The forest shimmered like moonlight had woven itself into the bark. Louis finally spoke. "I don't think I can stay here forever." Elena didn't flinch. "Then don't." "But you—" "I'll go with you," Elena said softly. "Wherever you go." Louis turned to her. "And the forest? It's inside us now. It doesn't need roots to survive." "You sound so certain." Elena smiled faintly. "I'm not. But I'm tired of pretending I don't want more than survival." Louis took her hand. "Then let's try living." They made plans. Not grand ones. Just the promise of a new town, a new apartment with sunlight and creaking floorboards. A place without altars, without monsters, without blood. But the night before they were set to leave, Elena stood in front of the mirror again. Her reflection shimmered. Not just her face, but something behind her eyes. Power and fear. She touched her skin, felt heat under the surface. And then she heard it. A howl. Not hers. Not a memory. A new one. Far away. And female. Elena stepped onto the porch. Louis followed. The forest was quiet, but not empty. A presence moved through it. Fast, wild, afraid. Not dark. Not cursed, but lost. Louis felt it too. Another? Elena nodded slowly. "We weren't the end. We were the beginning." "Do we go to her?" Elena turned to Louis. "Do you want to?" Louis hesitated. "Then, yes." Elena smiled. "Then let's run." Together, they stepped into the dark, bare feet against cold earth, hands linked. No longer hiding. No longer pretending. Not human. Not monster. Something entirely their own. And somewhere ahead of them, someone cried out for help. And the forest whispered their names in return. The howl was sharp and distant, and yet it cut through Elena like it had been meant for her alone. She didn't hesitate. Instinct took over. She ran. Louis followed, just behind, her breath tight in her chest, and her feet flying over moss and root as if the forest itself had pulled back its thorns to let them pass. The trees were thicker in this part of the woods, older, quieter. They hadn't come this deep before, not even during the worst of the Hollow One's reign. But now, as they passed through the shadows, it was different. Nothing reached to hurt them, but nothing helped either. This wasn't their territory. Not yet. The howl came again, closer now. More frantic. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea. A cry full of terror and confusion and pain. When they found her, she was curled at the base of an enormous pine, shaking, her hands clawing into the soil as if trying to ground herself against something inside her trying to tear its way out. Her body glowed faintly, the shift pulling at her muscles, her form twisted, half girl, half beast caught between. Her back was arched, her eyes wild and golden. Elena stopped several feet away, crouching low. "Don't move," she said gently, voice firm but soft. "We're not here to hurt you." The girl flinched, baring her teeth. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. Louis moved behind Elena, hands ready but empty. "She's stuck," Louis murmured. "She doesn't know how to finish it." Elena took a slow step forward. "What's your name?" The girl didn't answer. Her claws dug into her own arms. Her mouth opened in a growl. "I know it hurts," Elena said. "I know you think it's going to consume you.
But it doesn't have to.
You're not alone anymore." The girl's breath hitched. She tried to speak, but the shift fought her. Her bones cracked. She whimpered. Elena stepped into the moonlight, where her own shadow stretched long and unmistakable behind her, part woman, part wolf. "I'm like you," she said. "I've been where you are. I thought I'd never get out. But I did. And so will you." The girl's body jerked. Her hands spasmed. Louis took one step closer. "Let us help you." That's when the girl screamed. Not a howl, but a raw, human scream of agony as her body twisted once more, the shift snapping her forward into a kneeling position. Her face was human now.
Barely.
Her eyes flicked between Louis and Elena, wide with recognition. "Help me," she gasped and collapsed. Elena caught her before she hit the ground. The moment she touched her, the forest pulsed. Not with danger, but with recognition. This girl wasn't a stranger. She was part of it.
Part of the bloodline.
Of the history. Elena laid her down gently on the forest floor, her breathing shallow but steady now. "She's one of us," Louis said quietly. Elena nodded. But unclaimed, untrained. Someone turned her without finishing the bond. Who would do that? Someone reckless. Or cruel. They searched her clothes and found a name stitched inside her jacket. Nora. A human name. A child's name. But her blood told a different story. Elena touched the girl's forehead. It was burning. Her skin rippled under the surface, like her body didn't know what shape it belonged in. "We have to take her with us," Louis said. "She won't survive the next shift alone. We'll bring her to the grove. Let the forest feel her. Let her feel it." Elena looked at the sleeping girl, her brow still twisted in pain, even in unconsciousness. "We're not the end of the story. We're the beginning." As they lifted her, the wind moved through the trees again, stronger now, more alert. Like the forest knew change was coming. Like it was preparing for what came next. And far behind them, unseen, a figure watched from between two blackened trees. A woman with a silver ring on her finger and old scars on her throat. She did not smile. She simply turned and vanished into the trees, leaving behind only a scent Elena didn't catch. But the forest did. And it remembered her. The forest held its breath. The moment Nora crossed into the heart of the grove, the earth pulsed, quiet and deep, like a heartbeat returning to life. Elena and Louis laid her down in the soft moss where once fire and blood had burned away the rot of old curses. Now it was green again.
Alive.
Watching. Listening. Elena sat beside the girl, her hand lightly resting over Nora's chest, feeling the tremor of her breath, the uncertainty in her blood. Louis stood a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes scanning the trees, alert to every twitch of shadow. The forest was quiet, but not empty. Elena closed her eyes and reached inward. Not for her wolf, but for the bond that had grown, the thread of instinct that tied her to this land and everything it remembered. She whispered the old words, taught by Rose in dreams and rituals. Words of claiming, of welcome, of truth. Louis knelt beside her, placed her hand over Nora's. Together, they spoke the closing line. "What was taken will not be stolen again." The wind responded, rising through the leaves like breath drawn into old lungs. Nora's body arched. Her eyes flew open, pure gold, and for one terrifying second, Elena saw her reflected in them, not as she was now, but as she had been the night she lost control. But then the girl exhaled. Her body settled. Her wolf stilled. The change stopped midway and held, balanced, a perfect line between flesh and spirit. Nora blinked at them, dazed but calm. "I saw her," she whispered. "In the trees." Elena stiffened.
Who?
"She was watching me. A woman with silver in her hair. She didn't speak, but she knew me." Louis and Elena exchanged a look. Elena's voice dropped. "Not Rebecca?" Nora shook her head.
No.
Older. Quieter. She felt like the beginning. Elena rose slowly. "Someone's still out there." Louis stood too. "Not hunting. Guiding." Elena didn't answer. She turned to face the trees. Or testing. That night, they built a fire, not for protection but for tradition. Flames licked the stars while Nora sat close, wrapped in a blanket, her skin pale and her eyes distant. Louis drew symbols in the dirt. Elena cleaned her old blade and buried what is left of the shard at the grove's edge, sealing it beneath stone. "What now?" Louis asked as the fire dimmed. "We leave." Elena looked at the horizon. "We were going to. But now we're guardians," Louis said. Elena nodded. "We can't leave this behind. Not yet." "And Nora?" Elena looked at the girl. "She's proof this isn't over. The curse might be gone, but the blood still carries weight. There are others. Maybe born this way. Maybe twisted by rituals they don't understand. So we stay?" Elena reached for Louis's hand. "We become what they need. Teachers? Protectors?
Guides.
Something between wolves and women." Louis smiled, slow and tired. "I can live with that." In the weeks that followed, the forest changed. Slowly. Purposefully. Where once there were paths only beasts walked, now there were clearings. Spaces meant for gathering. For learning. Other presences came, quietly at first. One woman arrived with scars on her arms and a burn across her chest, seeking answers. Another came after her daughter shifted in her sleep and bit through her own tongue. Elena and Louis welcomed each one. No rituals. No altars. Just truth. Just the promise that they didn't have to suffer alone. Word spread, not by mouths, but by instinct, by dreams. The forest called, and those who were lost came. And the two women who once thought they could run from the past became the roots of something new. One night, Elena stood at the edge of the grove again. Louis appeared behind her, slipping her arms around Elena's waist. "You feel it too?" Louis asked. "Yes," Elena whispered. "Something's coming. Good or bad? Not sure yet, but we'll face it." Elena turned.
Together.
Louis kissed her, soft and lingering, the kind of kiss that anchored and ignited. Around them, the trees shifted. Leaves whispered. The fire burned on. And deep in the woods, the old paths finally closed. Not out of fear, but because something better had taken their place. Not monsters. Not myths. Just women who survived. Who loved.